So we were just looking at price elasticity of demand and, discussing it and walking through the various parts of it. But this is the underlying portion thereof. And what we're talking about is that, as we said before, we're trying to, as a firm, we're trying to maximize our revenue, increase our revenue, because again, profit this is an accounting term, of course, is that profit is, as it relates to revenue and expense, is that revenue minus expense equals your profit or loss. And so you're trying to either minimize your loss or maximize your revenue. Point being that that's what's underlying, the underlying theory behind this. And so if we looking at this graph again, this area below the midpoint, this being the midpoint right here in the middle of the demand curve, that's the unitary elastic point bisecting the demand curve. This portion below that, moving from left to right, is the inelastic range. And again, what that means is if we drop down and look at the graph below, this is the total revenue curve. And the total revenue curve, what that means is that it's the reason that it's hill shaped is that if we look, starting from the bottom right of the demand curve and moving up toward the unitary elastic point, what we find is that by increasing prices within the inelastic range, we are increasing our revenue to the point where we maximize the revenue when we're at the unitary elastic point. Likewise, as if we continue on, moving along the demand curve and we continue to raise prices, what that would result in is reduced revenue. So the elastic range, again, looking at it from the perspective of the graph we were just using, the triangle here above the midpoint, the demand curve, I should say, above the midpoint, if we increase prices, we end up with reducing our total revenue. And so that, of course, is not what we want to do. So this kind of puts some flesh on the bone, if you will, in understanding, again, the average revenue and total revenue. Average revenue, of course, is the demand curve itself. And the total revenue is the hill-shaped curve below it. And it's very nice. This is a very important graphic illustration because it's something that personally for me, it just opened my eyes to how this actually works. The key, of course, the trick, I should say, is to find your unitary elastic point. So if you are in the inelastic range, the temptation is to continue to raise prices until you find that unitary elastic point. Problem with that is that if you try to raise prices, what happens is that you may bring in other competitors. And if you bring in other competitors, what of course could result is that you would flatten your demand curve and the unitary elastic point may shift as well. It may shift down if it flattens out, meaning the price levels would be lower and your unitary elastic point, you may be moving into the unitary or into the inelastic range just by maintaining the price level that you're currently at. So this is why it's important as a competitor, as a firm, to be absolutely aware of this concept. It's not as simple as it might look. It's very simple, straightforward, but it's always difficult to find your unitary elastic point because, again, the ball is always moving. It's always shifting. The demand itself is always shifting around. The demand curve it could be tilting, it could be moving inward, outward.